Spoiler alert, you've already seen 2 of the items styled in my home already, but I bet you didn't know how they started out. Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I'm Nia. This is Sensationally Designed, where we make life more sensational, one space at a time. In today's video, we're switching it up a little bit. Okay, we're not doing any room makeovers, but we're making things over. And for those of y'all that don't know what upcycling is, we're gonna take some old things and make them new things. So we're not throwing things away. We're saving our coins, we're stretching that imagination, and we're giving old things new life. For my first project, I'm transforming this art piece into some 3D fabric art, but first I needed to fix the frame with some super glue. Once that was done, I then went in and filled any holes and scratches with some dry decks. Now for the frame, I'll be painting it with RUST-OLEUM metallic in the pure gold finish. The key to a drip-free spray paint is light, short strokes about 6 inches away from the surface. Moving on to the body of the painting, I used a primer to cover up the red. After about 3 coats, I could no longer see it. I'll be using my PODGE in the matte finish. I poured a generous amount onto the surface of the painting and then I spread it using a foam brush. Once I had an even layer of glue, I laid the fabric over the entire art piece. Then I began pinching and lifting and manipulating the fabric to my desired look. There's literally no rhyme or reason to this process. I mean, you really just can't mess this up. And for this project, honestly, you can really use any type of fabric. I'm using an old window curtain. You can use a bed sheet, some pillowcases, literally just about anything. To get the plaster look I'm going for, I'm going to be doing a technique we all know and love, and that is mixing baking soda with some paints. I want a very limestoney, off-white with some warmth tone, if that makes any sense. So basically, I'm just going to be mixing a little bit of tan with some white paint and slapping in some baking soda. The more baking soda you add, the thicker your mixture is going to be. But because I'm working on fabric with a lot of humps and bumps and dips and grooves, I'm going to keep mine a little more on the loose side. Once I got the paint to a desired color and consistency, it was time to go to work. I went over the painting about twice and then I let it dry overnight. But in the morning I realized I missed a few areas and I went in with a fine-tooth brush to get all the missed spots. Here's the finished product. Project 2 will be vintage inspired stools. You've seen them, we love them, and I'll be doing the viral easy off method. First things first, spray down the stool, or any item that you're working on for that matter, and get it fully saturated. You want a nice thick layer. Leave that on for about 20 minutes, and when that dries, use a bowl of Dawn dish soap and water and a scrubby. Really scrub that thing and get into the grooves. This is what's going to remove that finish and get down into that wood grain and bleach out them orangey tones. After scrubbing for what felt like forever, I then gave the stool a good rinse down. You want to make sure to get rid of all the residue. I know it doesn't look like much now, but letting it completely dry out, you'll really notice the difference. You can see it took good in some places and not others, so I repeated the process twice. And now that the wood was nice and stripped, I then measured about 18 inches down from the top because that was the finished height I wanted for the stool. I then marked those spots with painter's tape, and this is going to keep the wood from splintering when I go in with my blade to cut it. And if you don't have a jigsaw, a circular saw will work just as well, and if you aren't into power tools, a typical hand saw will get the job done. With the top and bottom separated, I can now actually create two stools. So I ran to the hardware store and purchased this wood round. It was about $8. I'll be securing the seat to the legs with pocket holes, and to do this you'll need a pocket hole jig, a clamp, and then a pocket hole driver. You want to set the driver bit as well as the jig to the thickness of your wood, and for me it was 1.5 inches. Place the jig on the wood, clamp it down, and then drill your holes as usual. And if you don't have a pocket hole Craig jig, you can simply just sink some holes through the seat and then go back and fill them with wood filler and stain as usual. Now to give the piece the old and worn and vintage look, we're just gonna start beating it up. I mean, literally just take a hammer to it, scrape it, pound it, whatever. I've even seen people use chains. I mean, go to work. You got some pent up aggression, you got somebody you want to slap, take it out on the stool. You literally can't hurt it. I even went in with my jigsaw and created like some saw marks and some cutouts just to really add some age to it. And then at the very last minute, I seen I had a little torch, so I decided to add some burn marks just for a little more flair. And I really think it gave this piece a little something extra, just took it to the next notch. When I finished distressing it, I then went in with some sandpaper, 220 grit, really just to smooth it out, get rid of any splinters and sharp edges. I do want this to be a functioning stool, so can't have anybody getting hurt. My next step is staining, but before I can get to that, it's important that I really clean up this mess I made. For stain, I'll be using MINWAX, the special walnut, as well as the classic gray, and I'll be doing a custom mix with these two. And if you never stained anything before, it's real simple. It's just wax on, wax off, wax on, a wax off. Except this ain't wax, it's stain. So you just want to wipe on some. It's best to go in the same direction of the grain, and then you wipe off the excess after you let it sit for a little bit. Once I got the stool fully saturated with the special walnut, I went over the top of that with the special gray. And adding the special gray on top is what gives it that rustic vintage vibe that I'm going for. So for the second stool, I'm going to be going in with this FRUITWOOD from MINWAX. And if I can keep it all the way 100 with y'all, I really was not feeling this color. Like, y'all, I just did not like it. Look, it's just so, it wasn't giving. I ended up deciding to go over the top of it with the special walnut, and then I thought that would give me a better vibe, but didn't like that either. Like, look, it wasn't as like the other one. I had to keep brainstorming. What I decided was to kind of just really cover the whole stool with it anyway, and then over the top of it with a tan wash. And if you don't know what tan wash is, it's really the same thing as a whitewash, but just using tan paint. So in a bowl, I mixed together some water and just some tan paint I had left over with all my craft paints. Gonna brush this all over the top, and then you wipe it off immediately just to leave that nice tan haze. Yeah, this was the move. One thing I've learned about DIY is it don't always go right the first time, but just keep trying and work your way through and you'll end up with a really good product. I promise, just see it through. Here's the finished look. And last but not least, I'll be making over a steamer trunk I got off Facebook Marketplace for only 20 bucks. But first, a trip to Joann's for some fabric. And before I start this project with anything I buy secondhand, I have to give it a real good cleaning. And the technique we'll be using today is decoupage, which is pretty much adhering fabric to a surface using glue. And first thing I did was measure out this top portion to cut my fabric down to size. Once I got it cut down to size, I then go over the top of that surface with the Mod Podge. I just pour a nice little amount and spread it out all over using a foam brush. You want to get an even layer, and I made sure I got really close and in those crevices because it's really important to have a good layer of glue so that our fabric will stick. When I was satisfied with how the glue was applied, I then laid my fabric on top. You want to really smooth it out and get all the wrinkles, but make sure you have enough excess because we're going to trim this down to size later. Here I'm using a smoothing tool I got out of a wallpapering kit, and it comes with an XACTO knife. You want to get out all the lumps, bumps, and wrinkles and get it really smooth. Once it's smooth, you want to go over the top of the fabric with more of the Mod Podge glue, and this is what's going to seal it up, get really good in those edges, and it's going to keep it from lifting. And though this product looks hazy, it will dry clear. I repeated this process in every area of the trunk that I wanted covered in this fabric, and I let it dry overnight. This is what it looked like dry, and to give it the finish and complete look, we're going to trim away the excess fabric with my XACTO knife. I really cannot stress this enough, but go slow and take your time. Moving too fast will cause your blade to run in spaces you don't want to, and also make sure you have a fresh, new, and sharp blade because a dull blade just really won't cut through that glue and fabric like you need. I also have some scissors on hand to clip away any of the snags. And if you make a mistake, simply dip your finger in some Mod Podge and spread the fabric back down, and it will dry perfectly. Cutting around those handles and locks was a real stressful situation, but so worth the effort. So I was gonna leave it here, but I want to elevate it just another notch. So I went on Amazon looking for some liners, and I found a houndstooth liner that I want to apply to the inside of this. But first, for a good adhesion, I needed to wipe it down. I then peeled away the backing, and I started working from right to left. You can work from left to right, but this just suited me better. I'm using my XACTO knife to cut around little cutouts and dips and bumps, as well as the gold liner. I found it best that if I pulled the backing away as I used my smoothing tool to apply it, it made using the wallpaper much more manageable. Take your time. You don't want to go too fast because you risk tearing the paper. It's a pretty decent quality, but it is still paper, so just be careful. And like anything, you start to realize nothing is really perfectly square. I don't know if it was the trunk or the print on the paper, but things started to get a little wonky after a while. So just really take your time and keep lining it up. Because it's peel and stick, it is pretty forgiving. So if you realize you got air bubbles or it's not straight, simply just pull it away and start again. I did it numerous times. Like, I think I spent about 45 minutes just lining this inside of the trunk. Also, pattern matching. I thought this was going to be an easy pattern match. Spent like 20 minutes just trying to line that print up perfectly. A nice little hack I learned is don't just start going straight across. I actually started working at the pattern match down the center and then working my way over to the left. And then I just repeated the same process as on the right side. It's really repetitive from here. I just continued the same process throughout the trunk. Here is my final product. The transformations, if I'll be honest with you, my favorite one is the steamer trunk. Tell me, what's your favorite? Matter of fact, tell me any items you've upcycled or any items in your home you're thinking about upcycling now that you see how you can reimagine things. With just a few little tools and a little stretch of the imagination, you can have a totally new item. And that's my favorite thing about upcycling. Save those things from the landfill, save that coin, and make something new. And if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. Leave me a comment. That way I can keep producing content and we can keep making life more sensational. Until then, see you next time. Bye.